First about my person. I'm from Zurich University of the Arts, Department Design, Game Design. We have Bachelor, Master, Research and Game Lab. We make from board games to video games everything, and we are a little bit, our specialization is motivation design. So the question from extrinsic to intrinsic thing. And I think games are really good in being intrinsic, and that's a little bit what we do. You'll find more about us, game design .zhdk.ch. Yesterday I thought about how long we do serious games, and I was a little bit astonished that we started 2004 with first serious games with psychology together with the University of Zurich. And we then started to make a lot of rehab games. The last game you see is a brain interface game where you control a virtual avatar with just with your mind. It's together with the EGH for the Cybertron. You see on the top, on the right, our rendered building at the Tony Areal. It's rendered because an original picture would be not so good as this. And on the left side, you see Tornalino. This is a hand robot rehab game where you play, where you have to play this Tornalino in a quite special area. So just that you see a little bit what we do also. So let's go forward to the project Imomo. The project lead was, it's a SDC project. It was, the project was led by Arc, Max Monti, Philippe Chesler, and the main thing was new ideas for water management and with new technologies. You see it a little bit in the logo. So our first project, we were in this project for motivation design. Our first project was in Tanzania. You see here a little bit the situation. It was on Mount Meru. This is near Kilimanjaro. It's the second volcano there. The thing is always the same. Upstream, where it rains on the volcano, you have a lot of water. Then the town comes, 300,000 people. And downstreams, you have polluted water. 2 rain seasons. And water distribution is like you see on the left side. It's a comparative and sticks with channels, like in the valleys or the Valais in Switzerland. So the problem is that the population will double till 2050. And the question is water distribution. Till now, I told before, it's comparative and not quantitative. So they have a lack of model, a lack of data, lack of model, and at the end also a lack of motivation. So these two things are totally separated, upstream and downstream. So the idea was to work with smartphones for crowdsourcing water data, to collect data, and to work with cheap meteo stations. So, what we learned. It's always hard to say what we learned, because the good thing would be if they have also something from this project. So, you have to understand a culture as a system, and you have to design to this. Otherwise, it helps nothing. So, what this means, you have to integrate what you found out into this society. And what you see on the right side is one of the founding. It's about motivation. The meteo station have to be at the school, because the school is a safe place. It's a good base for everything. So we put the meteo station against vandalism and things like this. So we put the meteo station there. So it's part of the motivation design of Tanzania at all. The second thing is that school, children and school are something where you can reach women. We couldn't reach women directly, so we had to go over the children to tell something. And the third thing is that we found out that we need so-called hub offices that work there with people from there to have a bigger impact and to generate something like economic development. So, if you want to do crowdsourcing there, also everybody could collect data with his SMS phone or things, you have to have several layers. that is what you see. That is what we developed. We developed 2 board games, and where these 2 board games will be used, of course, in school. This you see down there, Shumbara and Meru, 2 types of games which handle with water distribution and how water flows. What we affect with this is the children and indirect the woman. The second thing is a small web game. This is also for school 12 plus. And for what we do this is just therefore that water sourcing and water management will be part of this society in the next 20 years. So this is like the ground thing we do for motivation. And then the main thing is on the left. This is a water data sourcing app where we implemented some game mechanics. So think about a man who has 10 children and a woman. Woman is more important than the man, but it's the opposite in hierarchy. So he has to collect water data, for example. And you see then this will be sent via SMS to the data or via Android app to a water model. And this water model is important to decide how to distribute water, how you want to plant, things like this. And the important thing is now what you see here. So we had to design a process that goes from extrinsic to intrinsic, and the idea was that on the long term these go down and people understand, okay, we have to make water distribution, water data sourcing and things like this. Is anybody knowing inside here if there is a water model of Neuchâtel? Of course, there is a water model. Every raindrop that falls somewhere here down is you can calculate where it comes out, how much, where, and so on. Oder? This is used for the whole water distribution in Europe. And it's even like this. They even communicate between France and Switzerland about how much flow they have and things like this. Even this is made. So, on the right side, you see this is the smartphone version. We have also an SMS version, which works in the same way, but not with the same thing. What you see is simple. You have a Tamagotchi, so we took the Tamagotchi game mechanic. You have to feed him. He is at the same time a bioindicator, so normally if it's raining in Tanzania for the rain season, a bird like this is coming. So you have to feed him, you see it on the left side, and it's important, this is my thing, is that you have a motivation cycle. And the motivation cycle, there are challenges, you have to feed him, but there are also punishments. If you don't do something, he gets angry. And on the positive side, if you do something, you get news, animation, crop calendar, and he makes a trip through Tanzania. And like I said before, of course, this is also implemented in an SMS thing where it's not so funny and happy. So, and this was it. It's all about motivation design. You have to design a motivation process that you can integrate into the culture, also into the running motivation cycles you have in a society. And thank you to the ZHDK team, Sarah Celebiogli, Paz Schmid, Philipp Kostovic, and me not, because I'm standing here. So, thank you. This was the short presentation. Of course, it was much complex than I tell you now. Yassin knows this, and Philipp knows this, and Max knows this too.
On a le temps pour une ou deux questions rapides?
Merci. Pourquoi ne pas utiliser le même jeu en Suisse pour l'éducation à l'écologie dans les écoles? Est-ce que vous l'avez proposé aux écoles locales ici, parce que c'est parfaitement adapté?
Yeah, we have 2 games. One is you have to, it's a marble game where you have to put in marbles and then bring them up, also there are water drops directly to the fields, and the second one is about you have the water is coming down and you have to lay channels through the whole system and feed your things. And we discussed a lot if we want to make a business model out of it. We had that we produce it in Africa and bring it to Switzerland, but your suggestion was never thought about it till now.
Une autre question?
Also Max was part of the process, so.
It's not what lesson learned, the stronger lesson you learned with this very complex project from your side?
Also, what I learned is also, I think, what it is that really this thinking that culture is really a system where you can't come and say what you want to do as from outside. So you really have to feed with your motivation cycle also the other motivation cycle. So think about 10 Chinese people are coming into this room and they are looking at you and say, you have to be poor because you are sitting on a chair. Why do you don't sit on the floor? And this is exactly the problem you have with such projects. So you have to be not too hard, but you want to change something, but it's something like you have to integrate in the flow of the whole system.
Une dernière question.
First we have to...
Dans le micro, s'il vous plaît, parce qu'il y a la traduction.
Do you have results from this change from extrinsic to intrinsic motivation?
We made focus groups, also to test the games and things like this. But of course, you would have to do this over 10, 20 years to do it. And at the end, the most of the things were decapriated because it was not anymore so a big part of the project. But on the long term, you had to do this. But there are also other things like we introduced dices there, they don't have dices. So we have to use what they use, this little stick they have. So it should be a small term, mid-term, long-term evaluation. But there are no data.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, René.
Okay.
Alors, le deuxième papier qui va être présenté, la thématique est sociale, parce que là, on va parler d'accompagner des personnes âgées dans une phase douloureuse, mais on y passera tous, hein, donc c'est la mort. Et l'objectif, il est plutôt éducationnel, parce on va parler de former ou d'aider les professionnels médicaux, les infirmières surtout, à vivre ces expériences et à mieux les réaliser. C'est une compétence à acquérir. Donc j'invite gentiment Monsieur Pierre-Alain Charmiot pour nous présenter cette expérience.